Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is the space where we bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi.
Peace and love. I'm Nielle. Brooke is out today.
On today's report, Black women activists are fighting back against Republican-led attempts to block voting rights. And we have the executive director of the National Council of Negro Women, Janice Mathis, here to talk about it.
Also, all eyes on the upcoming elections in Virginia, and Stephanie Morales, the first woman to be elected Commonwealth's attorney in Portsmouth, Virginia, is here to break it down. Plus, reparations are on the table in Boston. Barbados prepares to drop Queen Elizabeth as head of state, and find out which hip-hop artist is about to graduate from college.
We have that and so much more. You know why? Because it's our voice and it's our truth. So let's talk about it.
Good evening, Soulmates. The top story for today is about the leaders of national organizations that serve Black women, activists, and allies. They've planned a new round of peaceful actions this week to build urgency around the existing calls for Congress to pass comprehensive voting rights legislation. Melanie Campbell, president and CEO of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation and convener of its Black Women's Roundtable, stated there is a direct line between the protection of our voting rights and delivering on the policies that benefit millions of women and people of color. According to Essence magazine, the push comes after a Republican-led filibuster in the Senate last week crushed debate on voting rights legislation for a third time. Last Wednesday, Senate Republicans unanimously voted against the opening debate on the Freedom to Vote Act. The For the People Act also previously stalled in the Senate. Now, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, introduced by Representative Terry Sewell, passed the House, but a Senate bill awaits further action. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer now says he intends to bring the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act to the Senate floor as soon as this week.
Soulmates, joining us now to discuss the voting rights dilemma in this country and the history of the National Council of Negro Women is Executive Director of the organization, Ms. Janice Mathis. Welcome to the Black Report.
Thank you. Pleasure's all mine.
I'm so glad to have you here. And before we talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill right now, I want to educate our soulmates on the National Council of Negro Women. It started with Mary McLeod Bethune. Can you talk to us about her legacy and why she decided to start this historic organization?
Absolutely. It'll be a privilege. I don't know if you can see the photograph behind me, but that is Mary McLeod Bethune along with W.E.B. Du Bois and Walter White, president of the NAACP. At the first meeting of the United Nations back in 1947, I guess it was, the impetus behind it in the beginning was to bring together the voices of Black women so that they could speak with more power and gain more influence. And the issue of that day, unfortunately, was not that much different than the issue of this day. The issue that they organized around was lynching. They wanted federal anti-lynching legislation, which they never did get, by the way. And of course, today we talk about Black Lives Matter. So it was to have a voice where Black women could come together across all of their different organizations, religious organizations, civic, social, and speak with one voice to the nation about our communities and our families.
It's so interesting that you brought up lynching because I know that's still a bill that sits on the table that has not been passed in 2021. That is horrific. But I want to move on to Dorothy Heights. I actually learned about her legacy at her funeral thanks to Barbara Perkins, who is a colleague of yours. I want to talk about her and her contributions to the civil rights movement. Can you speak about her legacy as well?
It is such a powerful legacy. Just a couple of examples. March on Washington, August 28th, 1963. They're in the bottom of the Lincoln Memorial trying to decide who's going to speak and for how long. Young John Lewis was there. It was Dorothy Height who lobbied that John Lewis should get as much time to speak as Martin Luther King. That's Dorothy Height, making a way for young people. Another example, when the Million Man March occurred, NCNW had a lot of Jewish allies who were skeptical of the Million Man March. Dr. Height said, I'm going anyway. I'm dignified and I'm going. She's there pictured with some of her colleagues, the male colleagues. She sort of in a gentle leading from behind, steel magnolia way, elbowed her way into those rooms that women were not invited to be in.
Right. One of my favorite pictures of Miss Heights is when she was in the Oval Office with Lyndon B. Johnson, and her poise and her signature. That is such a signature picture within our country today. I want to talk to you now about looking at the past and all that John Lewis, Dorothy Heights, Dr. King, and so many others fought for. And we are at the table right now demanding voting rights. I mean, what's your response to that, sitting in such a legacy position right now and thinking about the past and looking at today? How do you feel about us still fighting for voting rights?
Can I be blunt with you?
Please.
I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm upset. I don't like it. I think it's wasteful of time and energy and resources that we are having a discussion that we had in 1865, 1875, 1935, 1965, and here we are in 2021 having that same discussion about who shall vote and who shall have influence in this government. Clearly, the nation is getting blacker and browner by the day. There's nothing that anybody can do about that unless they're ready to go on to the moon or wherever it is the next colony will be. But it makes me angry. But I don't have time to be angry. I don't have the luxury of being angry because I've got work to do.
Right. So let's talk about the week of action that's been happening with, Higher Heights, your organization, the National Council of Negro Women. We have the Black Women's Roundtable, Black Voters Matter. We've had Melanie Campbell and LaTosha Brown on the show. Talk to our soulmates about what you women, Black women, have been doing on Capitol Hill for the past, 5 days?
We're really for more than that because it started, I guess, about 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
The first demonstration, there were 2 waves of women and men. Congressman Hank Johnson from Georgia got arrested along with Dr. Cole, Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman from Texas. To see these esteemed women, Barbara Williams Skinner, to see these women who have poured out their lives, living sacrifice, putting their hands behind their backs and put on zip ties to demonstrate that we still need the right to vote. It's sad, but it's also promising because it's saying that we shall persevere. If we were capable of being destroyed, we would have been destroyed long ago by this nation and its racist tendency, but we refuse. My family came here in the 1790s. I'm as much more American than Donald Trump.
Right.
I'm not giving up an inch for none of them. And so we just have to do what our ancestors did. The only thing I think I would say in addition to that is that Dr. King said what worried him was the silence of the good people.
Mm.
There are people in this country, white Republicans, who know better. They know better, but they're being awfully quiet. And history will judge them just like they judged the insurrectionists.
Tell it like it is. Now, I want to talk to you about what's happening tomorrow. Like I told Melanie Campbell and LaTosha Brown, I wish I was there, but I know that my role is to be a voice and give you guys a platform to speak. So talk to our soulmates about what's happening tomorrow, and if you're not in Washington, D.C., how they can support.
Well, first of all, if you can't come to Washington, there's always something you can do. 202-224-3121 will connect you to any United States Senate office in the country. 202-224-3121. Call that number and ask to speak, unless you live in DC, you don't have a senator. But for every other state, call that number and ask for your Senate office and let them know that you want voting rights, you want the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and you want the what they're calling now the Freedom to Vote Act. We want our voting rights protected. We are citizens and we deserve the right to vote. In terms of tomorrow, we're going to start out from the only Black-owned building on Pennsylvania Avenue, halfway between the White House and the Capitol, 633 Pennsylvania Avenue, the home of the National Council of Negro Women. And we're going to walk about a mile from here, where I am right now, up to the Supreme Court building, where we will have a demonstration and a speak out. And I really want to thank Melanie Campbell, my partner in this, for being such a visionary and being such a woman of courage and being so inclusive in terms of reaching out to others. It's Black women, but it's also our allies. So the National Council of Jewish Women will be there, League of Women Voters will be there, American Federation of Teachers. This is not a minority proposition. if you look at all the stuff that is in the Build Back Better plan, it is highly favored by a majority of the people in this country. So what you got is an oligarchy, a minority of folk who don't want to do what the majority wants and holding on to power by any means necessary.
Right, right. So, soulmates, they're going to be walking from the historic building, the National Council of Negro Women, founded by Mary McLeod Bethune and ran by Dorothy Heights and now Executive Director Janice Mathis. And they're going to travel to Capitol Hill. Give us that number one more time so when you guys are walking, people can be calling.
202-224-3121. And the message is simple. We want voting rights and economic justice.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ms. Mathis, for joining us today on FOXSOUL's Black Report.
Thank you for having me.
Great interview, and I love the fact that she said don't have time to be mad because there's work that needs to be done. All right, 4 years after white supremacists descended on Charlottesville, Virginia for the Unite the Right rally, a civil trial that started Monday will decide whether organizers had predetermined the event would turn violent. Dozens were injured and one person died in the chaos surrounding the rally, according to CNN. 7 jurors were selected Monday. They will decide whether organizers intended to wreak havoc in Charlottesville in August 2017. Some jurors were dismissed because they could not set aside preconceived opinions about the rally. Others were dismissed or excused for health reasons or conflicts with their jobs. The events surrounding August 11th and 12th saw white nationalists and supremacists marching through Charlottesville and the University of Virginia campus chanting, "Jews will not replace us, you will not replace us," and "blood and soil," a phrase evoking Nazi philosophy on ethnic identity. Of course, we all know this happened in 2017 where hundreds of them went there. And it all started because of Robert E. Lee, right? They wanted Confederate, they wanted to move that. They wanted to get that out of the park. People upset about that, right? But look what it turned into. And then you even have the fact that James Alex Fields Jr., he pleaded guilty to what he did by driving into the crowd and killing someone. So was this planned? We already know it was. And I love the fact, Neil, that you bring up so many times that it kind of like set up for what happened on January the 6th. And I just think, you know what? Justice needs to be served. It's been 4 years now, and people need to realize what was going on. And it was even insulting the fact that Donald Trump went on record to say that it was issues from both sides. Right. And we know that was not the case.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's 9 plaintiffs in this case, and they say that their plan is to fully bankrupt the defendants. That is what they want to do. And so it looks like that might be happening. There's one defendant who's actually walking away his thoughts from 2017. His name is Richard Spencer. And so he says that now, all of a sudden, his views don't align with today's right-wing concerns. He says that he voted for Joe Biden. He says that he's fully vaccinated against the coronavirus. And he also adds, this was very interesting, he says the years-long lawsuit has been financially crippling. So it seems as if money, like I said, they wanted to bankrupt these defendants. And so, hey, it seems like money might be an issue why some people are kind of walking back how they feel. And he's also representing himself because he's trying to save some money.
Yeah, well, we know Richard Spencer started the alt-right movement. He was the head of it. And we know that Bart Bright, which was ran at the time by Steve Bannon, was part of the organization of it, and they used the Bart Bright the Bart Bright website to get this message out, to mobilize, to organize these people to come in their khakis and their tiki torches and to protest, because remember, Wes Bellamy was the one that started the Confederate monuments coming down, our good friend Wes Bellamy from Virginia. And so all of this happened. So at the core, what is the name that we find? Steve Bannon. And then the next story that Demi you're going to tell about talks about it.
Absolutely. I love how you keep your foot on Steve Bannon's neck. Okay, you do
to.
not take the foot off the gas on him at all. So next story here, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has called for the expulsion of any member of Congress who helped plan the storming of the U.S. Capitol after a bombshell report alleged that several Republican lawmakers had coordinated with rally organizers. Her comment came after a Rolling Stone report published on Sunday night claimed multiple members of Congress had been intimately involved in the planning of former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn his election loss, as well as involvement in the January 6th protests, which culminated in the violence at the U.S. Capitol. The report identified the members of Congress who allegedly took part in these conversations or were represented by senior staffers as Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, Lauren Boebert, Madison Clawthorne, Andy Biggs, and Louis Gohmert. So this was interesting. AOC, she's been very vocal about how she felt about the storming of the Capitol. She even has been vocal about she felt like Senator Ted Cruz tried to kill her. She put that on Twitter. And so she told this story. And so a lot of people were like, you know, she said that she didn't feel safe after this. She didn't feel safe at the Capitol. And so Jamel Hill tweeted something so insightful. She said, the call was always coming from inside the house, which we knew. She says, but I'm also old enough to remember when AOC said that she didn't trust folks to help her to safety because she feared it was an inside job. She said, but you guys called her paranoid. This was an active coup that needs to be prosecuted thoroughly. So, yeah, I like that because it's like, you know, she said that she didn't feel comfortable in the house at all. She didn't feel comfortable in the Capitol, at all. And everybody thought she was just being paranoid. But I feel the same way. I would be terrified inside of the Capitol because you don't know who's who.
Right, right. But let's look at, you know, what that means. You have Republicans that are a part of Congress that are conspiring with people who are going to trying to overthrow our government. And then the Rolling Stones report says that Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani was across the street at the hotel at the command center. So when you say, why do you keep your foot on Steve Bannon's neck? I find it highly offensive that he was able to be a senior advisor to the President of the United States along with Stephen Miller. And when President Barack Obama was in office, he couldn't even have his preacher, Jeremiah Wright, come into the White House. He couldn't have the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in the White House or even speak to him because it looked like that they were racist and all the other bad things that they say about him. But the United States of America was okay with Steve Bannon being in the White House. That's why I keep my foot on his neck because he needs to be brought to justice. And I guarantee you, if Steve Bannon falls, Donald Trump will too.
Well, we're definitely waiting for that to happen. And it is a slap in the face if you think about it, because for those that do business inside the Capitol, imagine going back there since January the 6th. Like I said, it's almost like the movie Sleeping with the Enemy, but you're working with the enemy. And you don't know what's really going to happen or what's going through their mind. Are they there for you or not? So these are the questions that remain to be unanswered, and we're only hoping that we can get to the bottom. And like I said, the deeper we dig, we will get closer to that name of Trump. Because at the end of the day, we saw how they were even celebrating and listening to music while they were watching what was going on during the insurrection at the White House. Now imagine if that was former President Barack Obama doing something like that.
Or Black Lives Matter. They would have tear gassed us and blew us up.
All kind of stuff. I just really quick, I want to touch on Reverend Jeremiah H. Wright. You know, I was baptized at Trinity in Chicago. That was my church. Like, I remember President Barack Obama, he was like in set front row at church every Sunday. And so he was crucified. Jeremiah H. Wright was crucified during that time. So you're absolutely right, because they did not treat him equally like some of Trump's personal people, how he was able to pull him in. They didn't treat Barack Obama equally at all.
And Barack Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope, was inspired by a sermon that Jeremiah Wright wrote. And he wasn't allowed at the White House. But you have all of these KKK, Klansmen, and alt-right just running through the White House. Sad. All right, Soulmates, we can go on and on, but we're going to move on. Coming up, we have Stephanie Morales from Virginia. She's here to talk about the election and what's happening in the state. She's next on Fox Soul's Black Report.